Welcome to Got Grass, conversations with the legends and leaders of bluegrass. You've enjoyed live bluegrass at Guitar Town CT concerts in Hampton, Connecticut since 2008. From Tony Rice, Rouse Stanley, and Doyle Lawson to Tim O'Brien, Sierra Hall, and Billy Strings. Now you can go behind the scenes as we chat with your favorite bluegrass stars. I'm your podcast host, Chris Worth. Well, our guest today on Got Grass is Justin Moses. Justin just might be the most talented musician I know. He plays banjo, guitar, mandolin, fiddle, bass, sings, and in his spare time, he's a 5-time IBMA Dobro Player of the Year. He's played with the Dan Tyminski Band, Ricky Skaggs, Kentucky Thunder, and the Gibson Brothers, just to name a few. Justin is married to Sierra Hall, and believe it or not, he keeps up with her on mandolin duets. So welcome, Justin.
Hey, Chris, it's great to be here today and great to talk to you.
I just got a nice long interview with Doyle Lawson earlier today, so this is turning out to be a really fun new job for me.
That's
The
incredible.
podcast.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
uh, I had a podcast of my own for just a short time and had a lot of fun talking to people on it too.
yeah, it is fun. I was just going to ask you to start out, do you play the French horn? Because that would be a nice sound on your next album.
That's one that not really. Yeah.
Not really. Okay, well, let me just get back to the basics here. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in East Tennessee, a small little town called Madisonville, Tennessee.
Mhm.
If you're looking for it on the map, it's between Knoxville and Chattanooga. So
And
close.
what was your first musical memory? I know when I talked to Doyle, he said the first thing he remembers was hearing Bill Monroe on the Grand Ole Opry radio. What was your
Hmm.
first memory?
My first memories of music are more just being at home with my parents and you know, hearing probably probably 8 tracks at the time or something like that. And I don't know if I could name all the things that my dad listened to, but I mean Johnny Cash was one of them, and a lot of artists like that. And then on Sunday mornings they would watch a program called Mull Singing Convention that came on the local NBC station WBIR there in Knoxville, and so it came on every Sunday morning, and it played it was music videos, but it was more like just people standing there singing and playing their instrument videos, rather than like produced videos. But um, there's a group called the Primitive Quartet, and I got to see them a lot on there, and eventually saw them in person. But seeing them play, and they were playing guitars and mandolin primarily with a stand-up bass. That's what really got me interested in the mandolin.
Hmm. Were your parents musical?
Yes, yes, my dad played guitar, so I heard him playing from the time I can remember. I definitely remember him playing, and he played like a electric guitar a lot when I was real young, and then he kind of morphed over into playing more acoustic. But he never took it too seriously. It was something that he did for fun, and um, like I mentioned Johnny Cash earlier. Like he learned those intros to those Johnny Cash songs and all that sort of stuff. That's I was hearing a lot of that kind of thing when I was a kid.
So I assume you listened to not just bluegrass music growing up, but rock and pop and country and all kinds of stuff.
Well, to be honest with you, growing up, it was mostly like he would have been listening to some country, and I think he had a Elvis record and a few other things, but it was mostly just we listened to a lot of gospel music when I was very young. I mean, that was mostly what I was hearing, and then a little bit of country here and there, and then just of course, getting exposed to all sorts of music just through television and and even sporting events, whatever. You hear a lot of music, but then when I got up around 12 or 13, we really got into bluegrass. And for me, when I really got into bluegrass, that sort of was it for me for a while. I was like one of those people that like just was really hung up on bluegrass. That's all I really wanted to play and hear for a long time.
And what led you to play so many instruments? Did you play a lot of instruments growing up? How did that come about? You got to be good on so many.
Well, I started with the mandolin. When I was like 5 years old, I asked for one for Christmas, and my birthday's in December, and so I turned 6, and that Christmas at my grandparents' house. We opened all the gifts, and then at the end they said, "Well, look under the sofa there. There's another gift." And so my grandparents, my parents, and my great grandma, uh, who was alive at the time, all went in together and bought me this mandolin. And uh, took it home, and Dad knew enough about it to show me the first 3 chords that night. The first night I learned 3 chords, and he knew enough about playing it too to show me some tunes or some especially like intros, like I was saying earlier, to songs and things like that. Um, so I mean, mandolin was my thing first for sure, and then the fact that he played guitar and played along with me, I always watched him, for the chord changes and everything. And the truth is too that he was good enough that people around there wanted him to give lessons. So he would give lessons sometimes at our house to just people randomly or whatever. It was never hardly ever like a regularly scheduled thing. It might be just somebody comes over for a lesson, like to try to learn
Hmm.
what they can at the time. But he even through that, I some of the time I would have been paying attention enough while they were there actually to pick up on some of the stuff he was doing. We lived in a small house, so I couldn't really get far enough away from it that I wouldn't hear anything. So I was picking up on that too, and yeah, so guitar would have been the next instrument that I would have picked up and tried to play some. And then the other stuff, the dobro and fiddle, are definitely hard to pinpoint for me exactly when I sort of started wanting to learn them, because Dad, in addition to just playing guitar, I mean, he did like to have other instruments around and mess with them a little bit. And so, you know, I know at some point along the way he had a fiddle and had a dobro, and I picked them up and messed with them a little bit. Anything that he brought in the house, I would have been interested in too. But um, so I really have a hard time pinpointing like the start point for those instruments. But the banjo was definitely around that time I was talking about earlier, that we really kind of got into bluegrass when I was about 12 or 13. And when I got interested in banjo, I spent a lot of time with it. I played a lot out on the porch. It's like a stereotypical thing, but I literally did it. I went outside on the porch almost daily, probably for a long time, and just tried to work on the rolls and figure out the sounds that I was hearing other people do, and trying to replicate it, and figure out slowly why mine wasn't sounding like theirs. And I definitely played them wrong to start with, some of the rolls and things, and slowly figured out ways to correct things. And that was just I mean, I look back on that as like a really fun time of kind of discovery and figuring out sort of a lot of things to do with what makes the banjo tick. But then when I was in high school, there's really like a small community of pickers in Monroe County where I grew up, and one of the guys was Tim Tipton, who played bass, and he asked me at some point. I think I was probably a senior. I could have been a junior, but I think I was probably a senior in high school, if I would want to play some fiddle with the band he was getting getting started with some folks. It was called Kentucky Wind, and so I started kind of riding around with him some and playing, but they needed a fiddle player, so that's really probably the point where on the fiddle I started to maybe take it a little bit more serious. And then the dobro was similar, but I can say I really started getting more serious about it when we made a record with a band called Blue Moon Rising that came after Kentucky Wind. Um, we made a record in 2002, and we hired Rob Ikes to play on it, and he came and he sat down and just started playing scales, just warming up, and he was so good and so fluid at playing those scales. Even that just really um, inspired me to work on that kind of stuff.
So were you always determined from a young age to be a musician? Was that always your dream and goal?
I don't know if I was determined to be a musician, especially like a professional musician per se. I was driven to want to do it because I enjoyed it. I just loved trying to make the sounds I wanted to hear. You know, that I think that was the more driving force rather than thinking about even even just the idea or the title of being a musician. It wasn't about that. It was definitely about loving the music and wanting to also be able to do it like the people that I admired, if that makes sense.
So was there a time in your musical upbringing where you suddenly realized, hey, I'm pretty good at this. I really like it. I'm gonna pursue this as a livelihood.
Well, I'll say this. I was told from a very early age, over and over again, like, hey, like, you're good. I mean, people would say that, and people would say, like, oh, you're going to end up in Nashville one day, and all these things, I mean, growing up in East Tennessee, it's only 3 hours from Nashville anyway, but I mean, it's it's the thing that you would tell somebody that you think might be serious about it. I didn't take any of that very seriously, especially early, as a kid. I'll say um, I appreciated people thinking that I might be able to do it, if
Yeah.
that makes sense too, But and then as I got out of high school, I was a pretty decent student in school, and it was sort of expected of me to go to college. Not necessarily even as much by my parents, but just by my peers and you know everything like that. And so I did for a little bit. I went for just a short period of time, and I found myself in odd jobs, doing different things, and but I was in these bands at the same time, and again, not really thinking that that was a career path, but once we started the band Blue Moon Rising and started to get a little bit more recognition around East Tennessee, I think the idea did fester in my mind that, oh well, maybe this is a way,
Hmm.
because I had it's not like I was making a lot of money at that point, but I could see a path where it could be possible. In other words,
Hmm.
yeah.
Did you at some point kind of decide to yourself that you had to go to Nashville to um, pursue a real career in music? Was that a necessity for you, or?
No, I never felt like it was. Uh, but I also just didn't know. That's the thing. It's like I spent almost my entire decade of my 20s, still living in East Tennessee and thinking about it off and on for, you know, for years. But
Mhm.
I was also given a lot of lessons while I was living out there, and didn't really want to give that up at the time. And to go somewhere that felt uncertain and all those sort of things, as I think most people do. Now, looking back on it, I wonder if I wouldn't have been better off if I had maybe done it a little sooner. But things work out like they do, and
Mhm.
I feel like the timing definitely felt right by the time that I was playing with Ricky Skaggs. And so we were playing the Opry a lot, and I was making a lot of trips back and forth, and it made all the sense to be there. And then, of course, when I did make the move, it's like, of course, things started to happen for me too, as in terms of just being able to do recording sessions and all that sort of stuff. And it completely took the place of the teaching I was doing. But you know, yeah, I think there was a long time where it was in my mind as a possibility, but just wasn't sure.
So how did you and Ricky Skaggs get together? Did he hear about you and call you, or?
Well, I think it's a funny story. Like before I played with Ricky, I was in the Dan Tyminski band, and so Dan had started a band after Allison sort of started doing the Robert Plant record and everything.
Mhm.
Um, so that was 2007. Uh, so I'd just gotten started playing with Dan, and I was on the bus. We were going somewhere to play, and my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but it was a 615 number. I knew it was Nashville. This was back in the day when you answered calls from people that weren't
Right,
already in your contacts. These days, I don't really do that much, but
right.
I answered it, and it was Ricky. And so he was asking me at the time. I think it was when Darren was leaving the band, Darren Vincent, and he was asking if I might be. I don't even know at that time who told him about me. I don't remember what the connection would have been, but I had just started playing with Dan, and I just couldn't leave that immediately, to go play with Ricky. So I told him, I just started this thing. I really appreciate you, calling and everything. And of course, I'm a huge fan, admirer of his music and everything. But so fast forward a couple years, and the Dan Tyminski band kind of just it dissolved, after 2 or 3 years anyway, and Allison started playing again and everything. But Jim Mills left the band, and I had just heard through the grapevine. I don't even remember what the connection was for sure on that, but so I had done some things, session here or there with Andy and Cody. Like I had grown up sort of going to some of the same contests. Andy and Cody particularly, and I had competed in some instrument competitions in our teens.
Hmm.
Uh, but I had done a couple things around Andy, and so I had his number, and I just got a hold of Andy at that point because I knew I didn't, I wasn't working for anybody. I didn't have anything like that going on after the other band went away, and I'd ask him if they had anybody, and he was like, "No. Do you want me to tell Ricky you might be interested?" And I told him, "Yeah." And Ricky had me uh, come just play a show actually without any. I didn't get an audition or a tryout or anything like that. The show was my audition, but it was Prairie Home Companion, and it was up in Ohio on the road. But of course, in that case, we were only playing maybe 20 minutes or 30 minutes or something like that, I think. And so, but it's pretty cool to get to go do that. And then on the when we got back to the airport, Ricky asked if I thought that if it was a job I would be interested in doing, and I told him yeah.
Which instrument were you playing at that point with Ricky
Yeah,
Skaggs?
banjo. Yeah,
Banjo.
so Jim
Yeah.
Mills had just left on banjo, and so yeah, it was mostly banjo. I ended up playing, some twin fiddles here and there, and a little bit of dobro on a couple things, but I was primarily the banjo player.
So when you're hanging around the house, maybe on a Sunday afternoon with nothing to do and nobody around, and you're gonna pick up an instrument and just play, fool around, what would you pick up these days?
That's a good question. These days, it's probably going to be guitar. It might be the mandolin. Those are the two most likely, and followed by banjo. But like, um, yeah, guitar. it's just a good instrument to play solo. I feel like there's a lot of things you can do to accompany yourself with it, and I like playing them all. But but if I'm just picking something up to try to figure something out, it's probably guitar and then maybe mandolin.
Yeah. I guess like most players, you have musical heroes on your instruments. I kind of assumed that maybe Tony Rice was one of your guitar idols. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you ever get to perform with Tony in your career?
I never got to perform with Tony, and that's one of the things that I'll look back on and maybe wish I had, but it's okay too at the same time because it's like I've definitely learned to just appreciate the fact that I got to hear him a few times live and did get to play at the same place he was playing, a few
Hmm.
times. Um, Sierra in I think it was maybe 2011. I was playing some fiddle or banjo. I can't remember now which it was with her bluegrass band,
Right.
and she was opening some days for Tony, and I definitely remember a particular instance of getting to play, and he signed. It was the night he signed her guitar. So the hey, some people ask a lot of time, "What's the guitar you're playing?" And I usually end up playing her Sierra's guitar. It's a Rick Hayes. Rick lives in Cincinnati area and builds instruments, but
Yeah, I'm familiar with him. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, he so Tony signed that guitar that night, and yeah.
Yeah. Um, I recently heard a quote. This is a little off the subject we're talking about, but it was a bluegrass guitarist. It might have been Brian Sutton. I don't remember. He said that when he got to Nashville, there was a kind of a secret known to all the session players was that you play your leads based on the next chord in the sequence, not the present one. So you're always kind of one step ahead of the song. Have you ever heard that technique being discussed?
It doesn't ring a bell, honestly. I don't remember anybody ever saying that. It's interesting. It's interesting thought.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hadn't heard it either, and I just in my own way tried it on various little things, and it's kind of like keeps pulling you ahead of the melody and the chord to the next one. It kind of it's a nice kind of thing. I don't know if it's true. It sounds possible, but I just wondered if you ever heard that.
No, that's a new one on me, actually. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think I first met you in 2012. You were playing with Sierra and her and Highway 111. You played at a small venue in Connecticut.
Uh-huh.
I think you were playing fiddle at the time with her.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. When did you and Sierra first meet? Were you longtime friends or?
Yeah. No, yeah, we've been friends since she was a teenager. She, you know, uh, I don't remember exactly what the date was or anything like that. I ended up playing some with her and her dad and her brother, and this was after the Blue Moon Rising. I mentioned that band a while back. So after I was with them a few years, there was a gap in the middle, and I went and played some stuff with Sierra and her family. But then, I went back with Blue Moon Rising for a while and played with this band, Newfound Road, and Dan, and all these things. And when around the time you're talking about, it was probably more like 2010 is when I moved to Nashville, and I think Sierra moved also to Nashville about it was I think a few months after me, and so we uh, we hung out more at that point, and she started asking me to go fill in some of their band, with various instruments that I like I say there was some points along the way where I played fiddle and somewhere I played banjo depending on who else was there, but yeah, no, we had known each other a long time though.
Yeah. So did you ever think when you when you were friends when you were younger that you'd end up being a couple?
No, no, that was not a part of it at at
Yeah,
the time at all, really.
yeah,
Uh, I knew I liked her as a person, and she was a great musician and seemed like a good person, but I wouldn't have imagined that. No.
yeah. So did she pop the question eventually, or did you?
The
You don't
the
have to
big
discuss it if you don't want to. I'm just
the
curious.
the big question?
The big question.
No, that was me. Yeah.
Oh, that was you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Um, so as you progressed on your career in Nashville playing with bands, did you have any kind of special lifelong goal? Did you always want to lead a band? Were you happy just being a member of a band? Because you've obviously done both.
Yeah, that's a good question too. So, early on, especially, I didn't think about that part of it very much at all. I was very content being in a band, and I thought that was, a neat feeling at the time. Like it felt like we were trying to take the band somewhere. And then I started, working for people, and that has its own rewards too. It's just a different thing, a different mindset, and I think I've adapted over the years to that a whole lot. But at the same time, yeah, I don't know that I ever completely figured that part of it out. Like, there's still a part of me that I think it's a natural thing for people to be nostalgic for their early years. And so there's a
Right.
part of me that like it's nostalgic to sort of have a band, a brotherhood, of sorts that feels that way anyway. But no, I'm fairly. Uh, I think I'm adaptable. In other words, I think I can make different situations work, and I've enjoyed working for different people over the years, and actually feel like I've learned a lot from each one of them. There's always something you can take away from your experiences, and I've been very, very fortunate to work with a lot of great people.
Yeah, you sure have. Would
Yeah.
you ever consider taking your own band on the road, like a band you're leading, or have you done that?
I've never really done it. The only time I ever did a show under my own name was uh it was, let's see, this is what year is this? No, it's been nearly 20 years, not quite, but almost 20 years ago. I did a little show in Etowah, Tennessee, under my name, and but my parents, like who I played all this gospel music with through the years, they played with me. My dad played guitar, and my mom bass, and I had a guy that was in that Blue Moon Rising band for a while. Lou Wamp played dobro with me, and had another guy that played some banjo, and I played mandolin. But no, maybe I'm not completely opposed to it, and at the same time, like I know, obviously, like I'm married to Sierra. I'm privy to like sort of what goes on to some degree with like leading a band and all
Mhm.
that sort of thing. So I know the challenges. In other words, I know there are challenges. I've known it all along, but I see it firsthand a lot, these days. And there's challenges to anything you want to do. I like the idea more of having a collaborative effort at this point. I think I've never longed to have my name out in front. That's never been sort of my modus operandi or whatever. But
Hmm.
I I'm not going to say that I'll never do it because you never know. There might come a time where that makes sense.
Yeah. Um, Tell me about singing because I know you do sing and I know you have a good singing voice. Do you enjoy being a lead singer, a harmony singer? What are your feelings about singing?
Yeah. So that singing was a big part of my musical life growing up too. I sort of being in a family band, a gospel family band, singing was super important. And my first love there was just learning to sing harmony. And to this day, that's what if I had my way, I would just probably be a harmony singer. I love to sing baritone, but I love trying to sing tenor too. And that's to me my ideal thing. But I have learned to enjoy singing lead as well. Like I was shied away from it for a long time. And then, eventually, uh, it probably took somebody just saying the right thing to me, which I don't know exactly what the words were, but like
Mhm.
I remember having a conversation where somebody said, "Well, I definitely hear you singing tenor. I know you can sing."
Yeah,
So, you know what I mean? It's like you sometimes think if you're singing harmony that, oh, well, that's just harmony. Nobody's really paying that much attention to it or something. But no, I mean, if you're singing, you're singing. And so it gave me the confidence to just go ahead and at least try. And so, yeah, I definitely made an effort on the record I put out a few years back. It's a
yeah, I
couple
remember
years
that. Yeah, yeah.
to do more singing, and I think I would like to make a record where I sing more of it. I did have guest vocals on that record, and it'd be cool to do one where I just sort of am the singer. You know.
Do you find it easier just to go on stage and play the guitar or dobro than to go on in the front with the microphone and the band behind you? Is that a little more challenging?
Yeah, I would say, if you mean as sort of the lead singer and everything.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah. That's just a whole different level of pressure, Like there's very little pressure as a musician as far as like just standing on the side. You really have a lot less to think about than if you're and if you're out front, there's usually, you've got to sort of front the show too, and talk to the audience, be engaging, and do all the things. I've talked to Brian Sutton a little bit about that over the last little bit too, because we've been on the road with Bela
Sure.
Fleck, and he was just telling me how it was a good experience. He did what I'm talking about there, or what we're talking about. He led his own band for a while, and it feels like that was a valuable experience.
Yeah.
Just getting out there and having to be an entertainer to some degree or another.
I remember quite a few years ago, Tim O'Brien had played a few times at Guitar Town, and I made a suggestion to him, I think through email. I said, why don't you and Brian Sutton go out on tour as a duo?
Yeah.
And he said, I guess he liked the idea because he did give me credit in one of his blogs on his website that I had suggested it. But at the time, Brian was obviously an amazing musician, but I don't think had been doing very much singing. And
Yeah.
of course, playing with Tim, he had to as a
Right.
duet. And I think it kind of brought him out of his singing shell too. Because he does sing a lot now.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess if you're a musician or an instrumentalist all your life, the idea of singing can be a little daunting.
Yeah, it's not foreign to me. Like I say, like
Right.
I've sang specifically harmony, like from the almost as I probably sang before I played, honestly. Like as a kid and stuff. But it's a different commitment. Definitely just to like putting yourself out there. Your
Right.
vocal is the most vulnerable feeling I think you can have unless you're just some people are just such born singers that they just ooze it. It seems like it just flows out of them.
Hmm.
Not everybody's blessed with that. So you
No,
know
that's for sure.
yeah.
That's for
So to that doesn't mean you can't be a good singer though. You can't be effective as a singer even if you don't have that. I think there's certain people that I would definitely um, say I don't know if I could even cite you examples, but people that I know that I like their singing, whether or not they're just some natural born singer.
yeah. I was talking to Missy Raines in one of my first podcast interviews, and she grew up not really singing much, and she ended up in a duet with Jim Hurst. And again, she had to sing, and she said he was so encouraging that it was so easy for her to make that transition to get the confidence to do it.
Yeah,
Most of it's just confidence because, like you say, most people can sing. They just maybe never thought they could.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and then you saying that you mentioned Tim and Brian, and you mentioned Missy and Jim. So Sierra and I started doing duo shows a few years back. Probably we did some all the way back as far as probably 2015 or so, but it was very sporadic, that we did anything. And then a few years ago, we started picking it back up and doing more. But doing that definitely was one of the things that's brought me out of my singing shell a little bit because it did seem like a necessity that if I were going to be a partner in this, that I contribute that way. But
Yeah.
uh, and then people were nice to me about it. So I guess that is the thing. Sometimes just a little encouragement sort of goes a long way.
Yeah, I think a compliment from the right person really boost your ego. That's for sure.
Yeah, and then there's a challenge, I think. So, I'll say this because it's something that I think a lot, but I think there's a challenge not to let that go too far, and then almost become a worse singer at thinking you're a good singer. I think I've witnessed that a few times in my life too, where
Uh,
people get confidence and then they get overconfident. So it's like
yeah,
a yeah, there's a
okay.
mental game to it all, but yeah, it's definitely a sweet spot.
What do you like best about the duo format? Let's say with Sierra. What's the most fun about that, and the most challenging playing just the two of you?
The most fun thing, really, there's a lot of fun things about it. I think I should just maybe go down the list. There's the fact that like for one to me, she's not just my partner, but she's just such a fantastic musician that it's just tremendously fun to play with her. And then the material is stuff that's coming from the both of us, so I'm getting to do more of my material than I would probably do in a lot of situations. And then a lot of great things of hers too. So I love the material. I love getting to spend time with her. There's all these things. It's just it's great from a lot of standpoints.
Yeah, yeah.
Challenges, I would say there's not that many with me and her, but I'll say one thing is just figuring out what the show needs to be or what the sometimes the sound situation or this and that and the other. It's more about the things that aren't directly related to just the choice of music we're playing or the execution or those sort of things. There's the side things that sometimes are more issues, and
Hmm.
just trying to figure out what it is because we've tried playing on one mic sometimes, and sometimes that really works if you're in the right place, and we've tried
Hmm.
playing on one mic with a couple of extra instrument mics, and again that can work in the right setting, but I don't know. It's hard to figure out what exactly we should do with it.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the challenges of. I'm actually doing sound for all my concerts now, which I know nothing about. I'm totally self-taught, and
Hmm.
sometimes it just works great, and other times it just freaks me out. Um, I tend to like, two or more musicians around a single mic as my ideal, but it's sometimes just impossible these days to make that work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like I say, there's been a few places we've done that where it was just amazing. I'll say one of the most fun nights I've ever had was she and I opened for Hot Rise at the Ryman, and I guess this was 2017, 18, maybe somewhere in there. Could have been 19, but somewhere in that range a few years back, and it was in the Ryman. We played around one mic, and for whatever reason, the sound just dialed in that night. It felt great, and it was just one of those nights where it felt like, okay, well, this is what we should do. But then,
Yeah.
and then you go out a few times later, and and you just can't get anything out of a microphone for some reason. So
Right.
again,
Yeah.
different environment, different night.
Yeah. So these days, as you mentioned, you're playing a lot with Bela Fleck, Bluegrass Heart.
Yes.
You're getting to play with all the top players night after night. That must be pretty cool for you. Any particular favorite moments you can recall in a show or something that just like really clicked or
Well, there's so many. On this last that we just got back off of a European tour, and there was so many great venues and great moments through all of that.
yeah,
And then we started doing uh, one of Bela's tunes that I have loved off the Drive record for years. And for some reason, my mind will not let me think of the name of it in this second.
yep, I get
Uh,
it.
uh, if you'll give me just a second, I'll look that up and I'll be able to tell you.
Okay.
But anyway, you know, everybody's such a good musician there that it's just really fun to play with the band. And there's a moment that happens in the show that well, Slipstream is the tune I was trying to think of, but
Yes, right. Got it.
yeah. And there's a moment that happens in the show where we play Big Country, Bela's tune, Big Country, and in the middle of it, it breaks down with just Michael and Bela playing, and they're just improvising, over the one chord there for a long time, and some of the stuff that Michael comes up with to play is just incredible. It's just great to be able to play the song, but then have this moment where you pause and then you just stand there and listen for a few
Yeah,
minutes while they just go.
yeah.
And Michael's just an incredible musician, and he's been like really fun to get to know and travel with and hear what he does on a nightly basis.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, he's something else. Fine mandolin player too and guitarist.
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
said, the whole yeah, he can do anything he wants to do, it seems like.
I'm remembering that we had a 10th anniversary concert, which we called Manzanita back in
Yeah.
2008, and you played on that. Thank you for coming to do that. It was you with Josh Williams, Doyle Lawson, Ricky Simpkins, and Todd Phillips. And I remember the story of Doyle was telling the band that he wasn't really familiar with the Tony Rice album Manzanita and actually didn't play it on stage because he didn't know it. And everybody I think in the band was kind of, what? I remember that, like people looking at him like, seriously, you don't know that album? But yeah, that was a fond memory of that particular show.
Yeah, no, and it's a fond memory for me too because I am such a huge fan of that record particularly, and then we did the Bluegrass Album Band stuff on the second set, and of course that's just like the Bible is on bluegrass for me, material wise and just the way to approach playing bluegrass. So um, I really, I enjoyed getting to play the roles there. Getting to
Yeah,
sing a
that
little
was
bit with Josh on the Manzanita stuff, like you said, where Doyle didn't said he didn't know it as much, and then on the album band stuff he did sing. He sang tenor, and I sang baritone on a lot of that.
that, yeah, because his tenor voice singing with Tony on those Bluegrass Album Band albums was such a feature of the sound.
Yeah, for
Couldn't
sure.
really mess with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was a great time. Um, yeah, Doyle was talking in his interview all about playing with the Bluegrass Album Band and how it evolved from one album that Tony wanted to do of just the old stuff, and it ended up being 6 albums, and they'd get together with no rehearsal and just figure out who knew what song and let's do it, and that was the way it all went down. And he said he that was to him it was really one of the high points of his life was playing those and singing those songs with Tony on those albums. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I would have to think that they knew at the time they were doing some pretty great things.
Hmm. Hmm. So this is another kind of a personal question, but the future for you, are you any plans on starting a family? I mean, I guess the music world would have a very high expectation for any child of yours. They'd be kind of pigeonholed into like, I just was curious. I mean, this is a personal question. You don't have to answer it. I just was
No, I
wondering if
will.
that was
No,
in
that's
your
definitely on.
future.
Yeah, no, that's definitely on our minds. It's on our minds right now.
Yeah.
We've been married for 6 years now, going on seven, and
Hmm.
um, yeah, we feel like it's time. So
Nice.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, from my experience, having kids is there's lots of great things that happen to one's life and your career and everything else, but there's nothing in my experience that matches the cry of a newborn,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Her brother just had, her brother and his wife just had their first, baby in November, and that's our first niece, and
Mm,
it's been incredible just to even get to watch her, you know, first few months. I'm still getting pictures, every day or two or a few days or whatever. Sierra will send me over what the latest of that Cody sent her.
hmm.
Uh, so
Yeah.
keeping up with her the best I can, and yeah.
So in your life these days, obviously Sierra has her band and her projects. I guess she's been playing some with Bela Fleck also, right?
Yeah, yeah. So she's been doing everything that I've done with him
Oh, good.
since sometime probably last year. There was, the first year that we did those, a lot of different people went out from here and there, or several different people. There was a few
Yeah.
dates that Sierra couldn't do, and Jake Jolliffe played some of the mandolin, and Cody Kilby came out and played a little bit of the guitar Brian couldn't do. But for the most part, the last few months, or probably a year, everything's been the same band with Brian and Michael, myself, and Sierra and Mark Schatz.
Right. Right. So, a non-musical question for you. What would people be surprised to learn about you, Justin? This is
Well,
usually the question that really stumps people at the end. Is like, this is
yeah.
we have to think
Well,
here.
you do have to think about it because I know if it would surprise them, it might surprise me too. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Now, most people know, if you know me at all, that I'm a sports fan and a big Cincinnati Reds fan,
Hmm.
um, UT football fan. I came from the Knoxville area, and of course, that's a that's a given if you're from that area.
Yeah, of
But
course.
those sorts of things. I mean, you know, I have my things outside of music that I like to follow.
Yeah. So if it was a Saturday afternoon or something and you had no interviews and no gigs and no this and that, what would you do? I asked Doyle the same question. He says, "Well, I have a collection of 3 or 4 antique cars, and my wife and I get in and just go drive around and get lost and then get found and enjoy exploring."
Yeah.
What kind of things do you like to do when you're just nothing to do?
Well, through the years, I've not been a huge video game person, but lately I've gotten back into it. So I might say that. Sort of a gamer these days, but
Yeah.
only in the sense I have my things. I like sports games. That's sort of what I play. I have a baseball game that I like a lot. I got a football game, and I got a wrestling game. Uh, I play it some. So
Wow,
yeah,
that's
combat.
kind of surprising. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Who does the cooking in your household?
Okay, well that's we both share duties there a little bit.
Yeah.
Like we both can take our turn. Neither one of us, I don't think either one of us sort of fashions ourselves as great cooks, but we can get the job done in the
Yeah.
pinch. Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys own a house outside of Nashville, or what's
Yeah.
your living situation?
Yeah, no, we've been in the house we're in for a couple years, and before that we had another one. Once I moved to town in 2010, I was looking at apartments and things like that, but honestly, I got to looking around and went, oh, well, I could own a house for what I would be paying here. So I just I bought like a duplex actually at the front of moving to Nashville. And when the pandemic hit, we were able to basically, because we had kept that place, I was able to sell that and the house we were in and buy the house we're in now.
Nice. Yeah, I guess Nashville is getting very pricey, right?
It has been, yeah, for a few years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but we came out good on that, and we got the place we're in, and we're both loving it. I think we can see ourselves being here for a good long while.
Oh, that must be a nice feeling to kind of be settled for a while.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
totally is. Yeah, we we nobody likes to move, so
No, it's not
it's good to not have that on the table anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, I think we're gonna call it there. It's almost an hour, and I want to really thank you, Justin, for being a part of this podcast series, for sharing a lot of your thoughts and memories about music and life. It's been really nice, and I hope to see you down the road. And I will say the door is always open here for anyone who wants to come up and play. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me on and having the conversation. It's been fun, and hopefully the people will enjoy. And yeah,
I think they
I'm game.
will. Good luck with everything, and give my best to Sierra, and take it easy.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed our podcast, and thanks for listening. Visit our website, guitartownct.com, for concert and podcast schedules, or just to send us a message. We'd love to hear from you.